Welcome to the Apocalypse Survivors Club Radio Hour, where we bring you stories of people who gave up everything for the end of the world and received just another normal day in return. Those who sacrificed so much and never received the revelations they were promised. Tonight, we will be presenting an interview from the Nebraska State Penitentiary in Lincoln, Nebraska. Larissa Davis, founder of the Apocalypse Survivors Club, a support group for people who once believed in the end times, will be speaking with Jean Fuller, a woman serving 2 consecutive life sentences for a double murder. Jean made a horrific choice while in a state of fear and trembling, and Larissa is not entirely unfamiliar with the allure of sharp edges. Let's listen to their stories.
It was a beautiful fall morning, early October. For days before, it had been unseasonably warm, what we call Indian summer, back before everything got so politically correct. But that morning, it was glorious, a God-given day of near perfection. It was bright and clear, and a cool breeze blew through the park where I take the girls whenever I know they're nervous. I packed breakfast, egg and cheese on crusty rolls, juice boxes, and we sat on a bench and talked about school, the choir, and God's plan for us all. Shelley, she was very into sports at the time. Soccer, softball, very athletic, like her daddy. Like her daddy when we were first together. She even won the President's Physical Fitness Award, most pull-ups in our school district. Katie was 6 and quiet. There's so much going on behind that furrowed brow, so many big words closed up behind that pursed mouth. She had her hair up in her favorite dark purple bow that she was forever tugging at. She loved that bow, but still needed some loose strand free to pull over her face tight, first across her eyes and then the bridge of her nose and finally her lips. The sign that she was busy thinking great big thoughts that she never ever shared with me. We walked home as the breeze picked up, sending the leaves rushing past us, driven before us. So much beautiful death. We cannot lose sight of that. The fire of God's glory, even the dead leaves. I got them home, put them to bed, gave them some milk to sleep, and I went into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of bourbon. I never cared for it, but it was still in the house from when Tommy still lived with us. And in the moment, it felt like the right drink. I was about to do man's work, the kind of work Tommy should be here to do, but he's not. And I felt like I needed a man's drink. I pulled the box cutter from the kitchen drawer. I admired the thinness of its blade. I cut myself with one once. Ugh, bad. I was opening a box of 10 porcelain baby angels I got on QVC, one each for the girls and the rest for the nieces and nephews. It wasn't Christmas or nothing. It was just a spontaneous gift for the kids. Out of love. I'm like that. Everybody knows it. So I wasn't paying attention, and my right hand drew the blade across my left from the webbing between the thumb and the pointer to the wrist. I stared at it and waited for the blood to come, which it did. The flesh divided and the blood came, but it didn't hurt. For 30 whole seconds, I felt nothing, and I assumed that was down to the thinness of the blade, that it cut so perfectly it delayed pain. I had half a minute, an eternity. Katie died quickly. I made a clean cut across her neck with the blade. Her eyes opened briefly and her mouth screwed itself up. It was the last time she didn't share those big thoughts with me. Shelley's death was tragic, violent, and that's the one I hate myself foremost. Oh, maybe it was those athlete muscles. Maybe I went too deep, but the blade got stuck a bit and she woke up and tried to fight me off. I held her down and whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby girl. Mama loves you. My sweetness, my light, I love you." And I did it. And I wept and I wailed because it did not take 30 seconds. The 30 painless seconds, painless, that I knew I had, that if death came to my babies within that time frame, they would die with no pain and be spared the horror of the end of the world. I staggered downstairs. No. I glided. I was terrible and angelic, and my grief was all consuming and a gift from the Lord. I poured another bourbon and I found I liked it more. It felt right. It felt like you do after work like this. And I took the glass with me out onto the porch to watch the neighbors go about their foolishness. This business of lives about to come crashing down around them. With the apocalypse coming, who needs to mow their damn lawn? Who needs to paint a house? "Julie McMillan," I shouted, "you will never get to eat all them damn groceries you're unloaded, not before the Lord Jesus Christ arrives, and he ain't interested in your Swanson dinners and gallon jugs of wine. He's here for souls, and the devil too, and judgment will be fierce, and it will be final." And with that, I drew the blade quick as I could across my own neck. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later, handcuffed to the bed. It seems you can't slit your throat successfully any more than you can cut your own hair properly. The day the radio preacher predicted for the end of the world passed without incident. Books were consulted, equations reworked, and another date set, and I prayed for their souls and mine. That day, that new day also passed without incident. And that man who promised the sky would be his blood, he was a liar. And there were no revelations, no visions. But now I could picture it in a way I couldn't before. The sky of an apocalypse would have looked like the blood of my daughters, overtaking the blue of their sheets. A few months later, that preacher died in his sleep, surrounded by his goddamn family. By all accounts, his body did not rise toward heaven.
Do you have any regrets?
I got nothing but.
Do you think you deserve to be punished?
No one deserves it more than me. Except maybe the preacher that told me them lies. In fact, maybe all preachers deserve it more than I do. Maybe they all got it wrong. Maybe God isn't what they've been filling us with. Maybe heaven ain't like they described. Maybe they set a whole lot of awful wheels in motion, and maybe they deserve a reckoning for all the terrible things they brought to the world with their lies and hubris. But that ain't for me to say. I ain't in a position to judge. but I got a feeling. And it's a powerful feeling.
What kind of feeling?
That judgment will come. Vengeance will come.
Well, it sounds like you still believe in the apocalypse.
It's a hard thing to shake off, you know? That kind of hellfire thinking gets inside you, you know? I don't look for signs or portents, not actively, but my brain still makes connections. Accepting the apocalypse into your heart fundamentally changes you.
You said you deserve to be punished, but your plea deal, you plead guilty if they took the death penalty off the table.
I did.
Well, that doesn't seem like you accept the full weight of what you did.
I made that deal because I want to feel the full weight of what I did. I want to wake up every day and suffer. You know how in the mornings you got that hazy feeling, that between dreams and consciousness feeling? It's in those moments when I forget everything that happened, when I expect my daughters to come bounding into my room and onto my bed to wake me, to make them pancakes. When the last shreds of that dream have disappeared, the realization that I slit their throats comes crashing down on me. I can't breathe. I convulse. I die. Every moment, every morning, I die. That's punishment. Real death would be a relief.
Well, don't you want to die and see them again?
I was always sure there was a heaven. Growing up, that was the only thing I could believe in. Now, I'm not so sure. For the first time, I think that maybe it's just nothing, that it just goes dark and that's it. And that's a peace I don't deserve. I don't know if there's justice in the afterlife, so I choose to subject myself to the justice of the here and now.
Do you really believe there's no heaven?
I don't know. I don't know anymore. I may have sent my children into a void. I may have sent them to paradise. I don't know. I don't think I'm in the position to determine what's real. I lost that privilege. I lost my bearings. It's a terrible thing not to know what's real anymore.
I know what you mean. Well, that's why I started this group.
Yeah. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about that? I think I'm done thinking on my life for a while.
Well, I'm starting a support group for people who are anticipating a coming of the apocalypse and acted accordingly. You know, there's so many people out there who quit their jobs, gave away all of their possessions, you know, cut ties with family members, all because they believed the world was about to end, and they need some kind of support as they try to put their lives back together again. And I want to help be that support.
That's nice. You're a good person.
Only because I've got a lot of bad to make up for.
Don't think like that.
It's true.
Here you are, visiting me in jail. And it's not like it's in the movies. You're visiting me because you think I'm a victim of some injustice. You know damn well I'm guilty, and there you sit. You with kids of your own, staring into the eyes of a woman who murdered her daughters. There you sit, with no revulsion, no judgment.
I must confess, I've had moments when I felt those ways towards you.
Of course you have. Of course you have. Wouldn't be human if you didn't, but you don't let those thoughts into your eyes. You don't let them into your voice. You come here with kindness. and the hope that sitting with me will contribute to the greater good. Just when I'm ready to believe there's no God and no heaven, don't somebody just show up here being all Christ-like and shit.
My father would get a kick out of that.
Was he a religious man?
My father, he was a good and kind man with no real spiritual beliefs, much less religious ones. He answered my childhood questions about my place in the universe with patience and a bit of science he'd picked up from documentaries and magazines. When I would ask him where I came from, he'd say stardust. He said, according to people smarter than me, it turns out that the little tiny bits of you, the ones invisible to the naked eye, they're the same bits that are deep in the heart of a star. So if you're ever in bed at night wondering about your place in the world, just look out the window, up at that sky, and you'll see the little points of light, the place you come from, and it's special. You come from all the way out there, and your mom and I are lucky enough that you ended up here with us.
Were you satisfied with that answer?
At first, but after a while, I started to ask where the stars came from. So my dad read a book, on stellar fusion. That's just the kind of person he was.
Sounds like a beautiful life.
It was.
What does he think of you now?
He's dead.
How?
Drunk driver.
When?
I was 15.
How did you fall into this? How did you become a believer in the apocalypse?
I never said I was.
Honey, you're putting together a very specific support group. You must have believed in it at some point. Was it your daddy's death that sent you down this path?
If it's true that we're all made of stardust, when a star goes out, it's a terrible thing. It doesn't flicker like a candle. It collapses and explodes. It rips away your atmosphere, and as you choke and claw at anything that might stabilize you, sometimes you remember a kind of man you met once. With certainty about the universe and our place in it. For me, his name was Preacher Seth Burroughs. My father did some work for him when I was a kid. My father was an illustrator, and oddly enough, the books he illustrated most often were fundamentalists, Christian stuff. They liked his easy cartooning style, classic stuff in a highlights for kids kind of way.
My girls love those kind of books. Simple messages, good and bad. Kindness. There's a lot of kindness in those books. A lot of cartoon rewrites of the Good Samaritan. I wish we could all hold on to those lessons a little bit longer. A child's religion before nuance, before wrath, before hell. Do you think we lose that kindness when we grow in faith?
I feel like there's a point where we start talking more about punishment than we do about love.
So true. So goddamn true. My oldest, Shelley, had an illustrated Bible before she could read, and I think she probably learned more about goodness staring at those pictures than she ever learned in a pew.
My dad would do Bible stories a lot. I still have one of his originals hanging in my bedroom, Joseph and the Lions. The whole pride sleeping together with Joseph on top, snuggled in. I've long since stripped it of any religious connotations, and I see it, I see it more as, he must have when he drew it. Serenity in the warm folds of the utter horror. growing up. Growing up, our house was full of upstanding Christians, men with deep beards and hippie shirts or clean, sharp faces and creased pants.
It's taken me a whole lot of my life to learn that you should always be fearful of men who seem either too serious or too lighthearted. You want somebody somewhere in the middle, a man who can both pay his bill and make a joke now and again.
Preacher Barrows he was in the middle. Now, whenever he'd come by to pick something up, he'd find me on the swing set and talk to me for a while. He'd compliment my father, saying he's a fine man with a fine wife and a lovely daughter, and that he did a real good drawings, but he didn't really understand them because he's not a Christian. He doesn't believe. But all that it don't come from nowhere. Sometimes something had to make that happen. Something had to give him that talent, and that something was God.
They say art is a gift, song is a gift. Both were given for us to praise him.
I told him that my father said that we don't come from God. No, we come from stars. That we have the same little bits inside us as stars. He stroked his beard for a long time, and then he said, well, that may well be true. I confess I'm no chemist, but if it is true, you have to ask yourself, who hung those stars in the sky? He said, you are the smartest little girl. No, strike that. Smartest person I've spoken to in months. You are special important.
Oh, darling. You did not have a chance. He had you.
He said, in order to make something as special as you, your mama and your daddy had to meet and fall in love. Now, given how many people live in this big old world, imagine how many things had to line up for that to happen. Your daddy could have married anyone, but he chose your mama. What a miracle. So I ask you, Larissa, what science can explain the miracle of you? No kind of science. And there's a place for you in heaven, child.
So after your father died, did you go looking for this preacher?
Yeah, yes.
And did he have answers?
Of course he did.
Uh,
He felt my loss deeply, and then he introduced me to others who had experienced tragedies as well. Loved ones who lost to accidents and illnesses and suicides, terrible events that all seemed to be linked to mine, either by distance or time or execution. And Preacher Seth said that we were all connected by these losses and these losses and these lost signal, the stars of the end of time. And that we had 9 years before the apocalypse, and we must serve God and find comfort during those years, because the end will be terrible before heaven save us few.
Did he tell you to give up your earthly life?
No. He encouraged us to get married, have children, to make the best of this earthly life. And after that terrible war between angels and demons, we will rise. Everyone who heeds his word would rise.
But in the end, no one rose.
No one rose.
Who'd have thought it was such a tragedy to live with one's feet planted so firmly on the ground?
Well, that's what I want to do with this support group. And put the ground back under people's feet.
It's a noble goal.
Would you attend? The group, I mean?
Oh, darling, I don't believe the state of Nebraska is all inclined to allow me a social life at this point.
No, I just mean, if you could join, do you think it would help? Do you think it could be a comfort to you?
think it would be a comfort for others. I think I would be less a real person and more of a cautionary tale. And that's right. And that's how it should be. I don't deserve to be a real person no more. But if what you're asking me is, do I think this will help other folks, people who went far down a bad road, but not all the way to the end like I did, then yes, very much so. People like us who believed in the end times now feel humiliated, stupid, all alone. Larissa, dear, if those old picture books taught you anything, it's that gathering people together for the purpose of comfort is never a bad idea.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. I want to be a comfort to others.
Do you still believe in God?
My belief in God is like my favorite song. No, I have a different answer every day.
That's clever. And I'll tell you, I used to hate clever people because I always thought that clever people just wanted to make everyone else feel dumb. Like clever was the opposite of country. But I like you. And you're clever. And sometimes being clever can lead to a greater truth. My mama always said that God was like a tune that you hum to yourself. Not a tune that everyone else knows, like not a real song, just something you made up, a melody that you sing softly under your breath. It's a melody that you know by heart, but it's a melody that you sometimes lose, because it's not real in the sense that it's written or recorded. Sometimes you wake up and it's gone. And it may be gone for days. But it comes back in the middle of the night while you're staring at the ceiling. That's God. So I like that you said that, and I hope your beliefs keep changing like your favorite tune. Because for me, Larissa, I have no more songs in my heart.
To the river to drown. again.